It's a fine day to ride for the Emperor!
But first, we must suit up.
Nothing like the open road. Welcome to Hobby Night. I'm Angela, and welcome back. Today, I thought that it would be time for us to get back to painting some Space Marines, because we got 2 new Codex supplements out, and I thought it was time, but I wanted to go back to the Hobby Nights, because it's been a little while since we visited them, and we've only really painted troops for the Hobby Nights so far, and I thought today, not only do I want to paint technically not a vehicle, but kind of a vehicle in IRL, but also an HQ unit. So for today, I'm going to be painting up the Hobby Nights Chaplain on Bike HQ unit. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. The paints I will be using are Gray Seer, Basilicanum Gray, Black Templar, Fleshshade Red, Iyanden Yellow, Snakebite Leather, Skeleton Horde, Blood Angels Red, Orc Flesh, Tallasar Blue, Biel-Tan Green, Reikland Fleshshade, Necron Compound, and Astrogranite. I decided to approach this guy much like I've been doing for a lot of my painting projects, and that is by keeping him in pieces and also making sure to mask the joint areas where I'm going to be connecting him later for final assembly, because it just makes my life so much easier. Now that our figure is clear of any putty and primed in our Gray Seer, it's time to start applying the first of 4 major colors that we're going to be using on this particular figure, and that's Basilicanum Gray. We're going to be using this on any of the metal portions on the bike that don't have a casing over top of them, mostly the undercarriage and any of the piping and everything. For the casings, we're going to do something a little bit different. The next color we'll be applying is Black Templar. We're going to put this on the tires, on the main casing that his book is sitting upon on the bike, as well as his legs, because chaplains typically have black armor, and I want to stick to that for my Hobby Nights, despite the fact that they have typically red armor. So we're going to just kind of reverse our colors a little bit and do black armor with red trim, which ends up looking really spectacular, and ultimately this color scheme works out really nicely. With my 2 darkest colors now on the miniature, I'm going to go ahead and take some Gray Seer and just touch up any of the places where I got those colors where I didn't want it. Alright, he's all cleaned up, and this is where the fun really begins. We're going to take Fleshshade Red, and I'm going to start applying this to basically the remaining casings on the bike that are still unpainted. We're also going to be applying it to the book, as well as the gas tank between his legs, and then also the trim on his armor. We're going to be doing this later on too when we get to the body, and I actually really like this look. I like the black armor with a colored trim idea, and I might be doing some future Marines in the same style that are just separate from the Hobby Nights, because I've really found it fun to paint. Our Marine is well equipped and has several bags on him as well as his bike, so we're going to use Snakebite leather for all of that equipment, as well as the seat of his bike itself, because I thought it would kind of be a nice touch and it would work with the warm color palette of our Fleshshade Red, and I thought the same thing would work well for the binding on the book, as you can see here, and actually it really did. The juxtaposition of those 2 colors just worked really beautifully for me, and ultimately, I really like the color palette that I use for this. It's very simple, it's actually very limited, but works great. To continue working on the details for this mini, it's now time to use Skeleton Horde and apply this to the pages of the book, as well as all of the skeletons on him, with the exception of the one that you see on the main casing on his bike that we painted in black. That one we're going to be leaving alone for right now, but all of the skulls on him, as well as that one that's attached to his bike and everything, is going to get the Skeleton Horde treatment. Keeping with the tradition of all of my hobby knights who get all of their weapons from Mars, we are going to be painting the casings of the gun in Blood Angels red. Earlier in the video, I talked about there being 4 major colors for this mini. Well, Iyanden yellow is our 4th and final major color, and this really starts to tie the miniature together. I do all of the chains around the book in gold. That skull that we skipped previously is also going to be done in gold. And then later on with the body of the figure, we're going to pull in this color a lot more and just make sure that we have bits and pieces of it spread throughout so that we get this nice variety in homogeny between all of our colors. With the gold and all of our colors done on our mini, it is now time to start applying a couple of shades, because I want to get this portion of the mini done before moving on to the rest. So for the gold and leather pieces, we're going to apply some Reikland Fleshshade. To help separate the bike from the Marine himself, I decided to take some Necron Compound and dry brush over both the black and the gray portions, with the exception of the tires, to give it a little bit more of a metallic feel and sort of pop some details back out, and just give it a texture difference from our Marine.
Oh! Hey! Didn't see you guys there. Well, while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video.
Whew! Alright, so the bike is done, now it's time to move on to his torso and his other arm, and for that we're going to start the exact same way we did before, using Basilicanum Gray. For this, primarily we're going to be applying this gray to all of his joints. This will help give them a distinct difference between the black armor we're going to be putting on next. Black Templar is a paint that I absolutely love, but continue to learn how to use better. And it's one of those ones where I feel like I'm going to continue to learn how to use it better, because this is a sort of tricky paint. In painting armor especially, you can sometimes lose some detail, but the way that I approached it here, thinning my paint, making sure to sort of go slowly and build up the texture, or not the texture, but the layers of paint slowly so I don't lose too much detail, worked out really nicely, and in a matter of no time, this guy was basically almost complete. Because his armor is black, it actually was the last big major part that I needed to do, and other than a little bit of a cleanup stage here in a bit, it's actually not too bad. And speaking of which, we're already in our cleanup stage, so taking a bit of gray Seer primer again, we just go through and pick up some of the trim in all the places that I don't want that black paint to be. We're back on to Flesh Terror's Red, and we're going to be applying this to all of the trim like we did on his legs. To help break up the color on his backpack, I decided to make the exhaust red as well. And because it is very important, we're going to make the leather on his Crozius red as well, because I just want to really tie this color in, make it predominant, and also just help this weapon pop. We're going to go ahead and take our Snakebite leather and apply this to the handlebars of the weapon. I almost did this in gray, but I wanted to tie this color back in a little bit more and have it be in a few more places, and so I thought this was a great opportunity to do so, as well as the leather strap on his Crozius. Next, I'm going to take orc flesh and apply this to the screen on the handlebars of his bike, as well as to all of the seals, the purity seals on his shoulder pads. I like doing this for my marines because it has a nice contrast to the red because they're complementary colors, and it just makes the seals stand out a little bit more in my opinion. To help the buttons pop on the bike, we're going to apply some Tallasar blue. Because I wanted to tie Blood Angel's red back into the miniature, I decided to use that on the lenses of his eyes. It's now time to apply Skeleton Horde to all of the bone portions of the mini, as well as the Purity Seal tapestries. This is probably one of the most satisfying portions for me because it really makes the power weapon start to stand out, and it also really pops his helmet, which is by far the coolest part of a chaplain to me, and I just really love how this ends up looking, and it just all together works out beautifully. But we have a couple more colors to apply before he's completely done, so let's go ahead and keep moving forward to that. It's now time to take Iyanden yellow and apply this to basically all of the gray Seer portions we have left on the mini. The wings on his power weapon, his halo, his chest piece, and a few other places on his arm, just to give a nice pop of this bright yellow to tie it back into the gold chains that we had done on his bike previously. Following our gold and skeleton horde being complete and dry, we're going to take our Reikland Fleshshade and apply a thin layer of this back over top just to help pop some details and pull some color back out. With our mini completely finished, it's now time to just work on the base. So for that, we're going to take our Basilicanum Gray and apply this to all of the stonework, not really caring if we get over top anything because we'll be able to do a small cleanup stage in a bit. After a very brief cleanup stage using Gray Seer, we're going to take our Iyanden yellow one more time and apply this to all the shell casings you see littered on the ground there. Using Astrogranite next, we're going to apply this to all the exposed portions of the base, making sure to work it up a little bit onto the gravel texture just to tie it in so we have a good blend. There's only 2 steps left, mostly because I decided I want to darken the stone, but the first step is we're going to apply Biel-Tan shade to the groundwork, including the stone, because I wanted to have a thematic green feel to it, because I've done that with all of my other bases for all of my other Hobby Knight Space Marines. And then, like I said, I wanted the stone to have a little bit more of a gray feel and look like there was actually a shadow on it from where the bike is going to sit. So using Basilicanum Gray, we just reapply that one more time.
This might be the best Space Marine I've ever painted in my entire life, and I'm really excited about it. I wanted to do something with Space Marines because the new codexes came out, like I said in the intro, and I just was wanting to do something for Hobby Knights, but I wanted to do something a bit different, and I think I accomplished that. He's gonna fit beautifully with the Hobby Knights army, but he still feels very much a chaplain, and I absolutely love it. Chaplains are by far just my favorite sculpts of all of the Space Marine sculpts out there. I have a soft spot for their skull heads, and they just get to be kind of fancy and ornate, and I like the sort of religious aspect of them, despite the fact that I don't actually care about most of that stuff normally. But it really works for the chaplains, and I'm really, really pleased with how this guy has come out. It was an interesting experience painting a bike, because this is my first bike I've ever painted before, both with 9th edition and then just like in general in my 40K history. I've never run bikes or anything like that, so this was a challenge. I really like the new bike sculpts. They've done an excellent job with them. I found that actually getting him painted, despite the fact that if I do this in the future with other bikes, I will definitely keep the legs separate just to make my life a little bit easier. I went back and forth on that and probably made like not the best choice for it here, but regardless, it was actually painting him was really fluid. And gosh, I'm just so happy with how he came out. And part of it is because GW did a really excellent job with the sculpt, but like, I'm just really, really happy with him. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching me paint this guy up. I hope you've learned a little bit about painting in the process, and I will see you guys next week for another painting video and a news video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos. Bye guys.